Hello, I'm Richard Vobes, the Bald Explorer, and I have a quest for England and for Englishness. And what could be more English, I suppose, than sitting by a fire, reading a book, having a snooze on a cold and wet and damp winter's evening. I guess other countries would be doing just the same, and why not? It can be bliss. And of course, fire is one of those elements that was first discovered and conquered. And when discovered, imagine the difference it must have made for primitive man to be able to warm himself and cook his food. Well, when I moved in my house, and I have a small modest house, it's a 2-up, 2-down Victorian terrace. It was built around about 1875, I think. And we moved in and there was no central heating. I think one of the reasons that we got it at the reasonable price that we had was because there was no central heating. Very much a sort of thing. I've been here for 30 years now, just under. And I think most houses back then, it's hard to remember because I've only ever moved into one house as a grown-up, I suppose, other than renting. And it seems that central heating was pretty much the norm, even back then. It does seem a long time ago. What there were these funny little gas fires attached to the walls. So there was some sort of pipe for gas, but no pipes for water. And these gas fires, I guess they were some sort of convection fire. They heated up in the room. Some of them didn't work. They hadn't been checked for years and they were pretty lethal. So we took them out. The fireplace that I'm leaning against here had a horrible 1970s gas fire, again, bit dubious, with this awful sort of mantle that had been made out of rather grim looking bricks and tiles. So we wanted to see if we could get shot of that and have an open fire, thinking that an open fire was the perfect solution. Now, I've spoken about this in a previous video where I was looking at my wood-burning stove, which eventually it came up with. The reason I'm making today's video is a couple of days ago, the government announced, and it had been on the cards for a while, that from February 2021, you wouldn't be able to purchase logs that were green and burn them on your fires, whether it be an open fire or wood-burning stove. And when I first heard this, I thought, oh, that's a bit of a liberty, isn't it? I never really thought that was going to happen. I just thought it was one of those policies that the governments say, and it's been, as I say, on the cards and nobody's really done anything about it. However, it is going to transpire. And I got a bit worried. So I looked into it a little bit, and I can't tell you that I know all the ins and outs of it, and I'm sure the policy would change this way and that way under pressure and what have you. But I think in essence, it's going to be good. I think it's okay, because I've been buying logs for my wood-burning stove and my Essie Iron Heart, which I have in the kitchen, which is a cooking range, which heats my water. It heats the house a bit. And it, of course, allows me to cook on. I can also heat and dry my washed clothes rather than putting them into a washer dryer, because I just hang them up from the ceiling there. So it serves a lot of purposes. And the idea really for all these things is to save a little bit of money, although I don't think I actually save any money as such. But it's also to give the money to local companies who supply my wood, small businesses, rather than giving the money to the big corporations, the big six as they're known, where some of the money is obviously going overseas to other countries who are supplying the electricity or the gas, or to the larger companies who also supply it in the UK. And I wanted to not give that money to big corporations, but to have a sustainable product, which wood is, because you can regrow wood, and just give it to a local company, thinking that was the right thing to do. Well, now that this new law is coming in, It means that a lot of these wood suppliers cannot sell green wood. And I think actually that's a good thing. The reason for this, of course, is that it's about stopping pollution. And I've got nothing against stopping pollution. I don't want to pollute the atmosphere, even with my 2 wood-burning stoves. And you pollute the atmosphere a hell of a lot less if your wood is well seasoned. And it will go in. Yes, of course, when you first start it up, there's a little bit of smoke. But once it gets going, it gets down to a bed of ash. And the ash, you just keep sustaining that ash with the odd log here, and it burns very slowly. And so you don't have huge amounts of combustion pumping into the atmosphere. And actually, now that most people have some form of central heating, there are actually quite a few people who have wood-burning stoves or open fires. Open fires, by the way, are probably the most inefficient way of heating your house anyway, and you're better off with a wood-burning stove. And many of the new wood-burning stoves that have come out are really designed for some of the newer smokeless fuels. So that's all good. And I think that while I do get logs, and sometimes they're not as seasoned as they ought to be, I stack them up in the garden as best I can. Sometimes I bring them into the house and I let them dry out as best I can so that they can be as dry as possible. Because when you put green wood into, and green wood is like freshly cut wood, into your wood-burning stove or on your fire, it's going to produce a hell of a lot of smoke. It also produces creosote, which is not good. And because it's not seasoned, the pollutants in it are far, far worse. And I've often received bags of logs, which I've paid several £100s for, only to discover that they're not terribly well seasoned. So I don't want to put them in my wood-burning stove because they don't burn very hot on one hand, and of course they're going to smoke and they take longer to get going. So I'm rather hopeful that this new law is going to ensure that we have better seasoned logs for delivery. I'm hoping that actually that now there'll be a bigger demand for it, so the prices will go down. And I really do hope that rather than people throw up their hands and get all uppity about people burning logs, that actually they'll embrace this and that actually we'll have more people burning wood because it is a sustainable product. It does go into the local economy. It keeps a number of people employed. It has the manufacturers who are making the various different wood-burning stoves keep their business going. And also the money isn't going overseas to other people. I'm going to get back to stacking my wood and bringing it in and drying it out and lighting the fire a little bit later this evening when it gets a bit cold. Thank you so much for watching. I'm sure I shall get absolutely ribbed for making a video about coal. Not about coal, I could outlaw coal tomorrow, but about burning logs. I'm sure people will be very unhappy with me. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch up with you when I'm out and about as soon as this wet weather breaks. Bye-bye.